Hello and welcome to a video on finding the distance between 2 points. I've pre-drawn this graph out so that you don't have to suffer watching me try to draw it. So what I've got here is an XY plane. I've got the Y-axis going vertically up. I've got the X-axis going to the right direction in the positive X direction. So what I've done here is we want to identify the distance between A and B. So what I can do here is for B, I can identify where the point in the for Y and the point for X, and I can do the same for A. So what I've done here in different color is I've just made it into a right triangle so that we can actually use the values to be able to determine how to find that distance. So to find the length of this section here in this kind of greenish turquoise color, I would have to subtract the value of the second X point. Sorry, I'd have to subtract the value of the first X point from the second X point. So X sub 2 minus X sub 1. And the same would be the case for this in the Y direction here. So quite simply, because I've now got a right triangle, then I can use Pythagoras theorem. So A squared equals B squared plus C squared. I can't even draw a C now. Plus C squared. To be able to determine the length of that A to B. So what we can do is we can just label this as A and B and C, and I would then write out the distance formula, which is given as, so you've got x2 minus x1 squared, and I'll show you how this relates to the Pythagoras theorem in a sec, plus y squared minus y squared, keep saying squared, y sub 2 minus y sub 1, that's squared, and then that is all under the square root sign. I really can't draw. So what I've done here is I've substituted this bit here for B, and I've substituted this here for C, and then what I've done is I've gotten rid of this square root sign just by putting it, just by squaring both sides. So this is essentially just an extension of, well, not even an extension, just a version of the Pythagoras theorem. So let's say we are given the points 3, 5, and we're given another point 2 and 6. What we'd need to do is we'd need to identify which points they are on the graph. So this would be x sub 1, that would be y sub 1, and this would be x sub 2. Well, yeah, y sub 2. I'm losing it today. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll substitute these values into this distance formula. So we would have 2 minus 3 squared in the brackets, plus another bracket here, 6 minus 5 squared, and then that is all under the square root sign. So what does this look like then? I should probably start with that. Actually, more specifically, the A from A to B. So no, I'm going to call it A. Keep it simple. Okay, so we have minus 1 squared plus 1 squared under the square root sign, and then that will give us 1 plus 1, and then that will give us square root 2. So we'll leave it as square root 2 because if we're messing around with decimals, it could get a little bit complicated. This is just a nice thing to work with here. So that is how you would use the distance formula. Essentially, you're applying it in terms of Pythagoras theorem to identify the distance, in this case, between A and B. Okay, thanks for watching. Please do like, comment and subscribe. I shall see you on the next video, and any questions, throw them in the comment section, and I shall see you soon. Take care.